Hi.
Hi.
I understand that for those watching online, some greedy and selfish person is sticking commercials in the middle of my words until we find a cure for this disease called capitalism. There's not much we can do about it. Gimli says that if you put an ad block like AdBlock Plus in, it may block those commercials. I recommend everybody try it. And in the worst case, just pull me up in 2 separate windows. And when a commercial comes on in one, mute it and switch to the other one. Then you won't miss anything. Okay, Jules? All right. So let's talk about some simple things tonight, because we've talked about big, scary, complex things a few times. How many of you guys have seen Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee in the movies? Or Brandon Lee and the Crow leaping from building top to building top? Bruce Lee had the ability to hit a giant block of ice and shatter it. I mean, massive thing. He could just break it. He could hit that hard. And Jackie Chan does these crazy leaps off of buildings and wild monkey flips and running up the sides of walls and leaping over gates. It's impressive stuff. That stuff isn't possible, though, if they didn't have the basic martial arts training. That stuff came later. Impressive stuff always comes later. And the very first of martial arts training is, all right, put your feet like this and stand like this. And it's called a stance. And if you can't do the basic stance, it doesn't matter how good you punch, you're never going to break a block of ice because you'll keep falling on your butt. You can't do these fancy Jackie Chan moves if you can't do the basic stance. And for us in Elf Path, we do white belt and yellow belt and all the way up to black belt, because this is a bit like a martial art. And our most basic stance, the thing that we do over and over, not just as white belts, but you'll still be doing at black belt, is ground center breathe. Now, some of you may think, oh, ground center breathe, that's obvious, that's stupid. You need to understand that it took me a decade of work to figure out what grounding is and how it worked. I studied breathing with all kinds of different schools, all kinds of different places. You know, hours sitting zazen and some guy with a stick smacking me in the shoulders, because that's what they do, to learn different ways to breathe. And there are lots of other things that I tried. But the 3 that seem most important to me are ground, center, and breathe. And I put them in that order on purpose, because for me that's the one that feels the most right based on what I've seen. Ground, center, breathe. Now, I talked to someone this week who said, oh, grounding. I close my eyes and picture every feeling inside as lots of knobs, like a big NASA launch center control, and I adjust this one and that one and that one, and that's grounding for me. And I've just talked to someone tonight who said, grounding. Well, first I have to get in my guts, and then I do this sort of bilateral spreading of energy, and I go through and calculate all the emotions inside. And that's great. I mean, both those things are awesome, but that's not what I'd consider grounding. Let's imagine you bring lots of healthy energy into your belly, and you get centered in there, and then you just ground it all out and throw it away. What good did it do to get there and get centered if you're just going to throw all that energy away? Grounding's not about throwing away all the energy inside. And it's not about fine-tuning lots of things. And it's not about feeling your feelings. Grounding is easy. It really is. And it may seem strange or complicated, but you take the heel of your foot, stomp it slightly on the floor. You do that with both feet because you ground through the front of the heel of your foot. And you don't have to calculate or measure anything. You just imagine all the emotions, all the feelings, all the energy that's bouncing around inside you, like electricity bouncing around inside an electrical thing that's going wrong, you know, little bolts and jolts firing all over the place. And you just take all that and just imagine it, you know, just take a grounding wire like a lightning rod And just imagine it going down the grounding wire into the ground, and it's gone. There's no fancy stuff. There's no calculating emotions. There's no finding out what you're feeling. You just imagine all the noise bouncing around. The noise, and it's gone. And this grounding rod that runs from the heel of your foot up through your legs into your belly isn't something you make each time. Right? When somebody's got a grounding rod on their chimney, they don't take it down after the storm and run back and put it up when the next storm starts. It stays there all the time. And this grounding rod inside stays there all the time. And so anytime there's a little flash of anger bouncing around in your guts and heating things up, you just, touch it to the grounding rod and it's gone. Anytime there's frustration or fear, it's an energy. Just touch it to the grounding rod and it's gone. It's you don't take your grounding rod and stick it in an electrical outlet. That grounds your whole house. It's not a good idea. At the very best, you'll have to go and reset your breakers. At the worst, you get hurt doing this. Grounding rod isn't calculating, isn't measuring, isn't any of that stuff. Grounding is just keeping this sort of grounding rod that runs down your legs there all the time. And whenever something's going bzzz and it's noisy, just touch it to that grounding rod. And it short circuits right into the ground and it's gone. You just keep that grounding rod all the time. So you got lots of, noise, frustration, fear, anxiety, drama, chaos, whatever going on, bouncing around here. If the first thing you try to do is center, you got to get through all that messy stuff. And it's like trying to climb up on top of a stool that's sitting on top of your house in a hurricane. It's really complicated because all this stuff is knocking you around. But if you can take the very first thing and just imagine all the noise in you and just touch it to the grounding rod and just watch it go whoosh, gone. Oh, there's some fear, gone. There's some anxiety, grounding rod, gone. It's that easy. If you can do that, it shouldn't even take thought. It's more like imagining all of the noise in your body and just kind of go whoosh, and it's gone. You can make a little noise if you like. For a lot of people, noise helps. Noise actually focuses your thoughts. If you find a noise that represents grounding, it might be right? Is that electricity that runs through the grounding rod? And it might be whoosh or as you flush it. I don't know. It doesn't matter what it is. But if you find a noise that works for you, use it. Actually make this noise out loud. If you find that a gesture helps. If you ever study one of these games that have magic, all the magic spells have somatic components. And these are gestures and words, verbal components and somatic components. So you might say abracadabra and go and you make a ferret appear. Abracadabra! Right? And you have a whole house full of ferrets if you walk around doing this. Right? Or armadillos. The verbal and somatic components help. And if you play one of these kind of games that involves magic, what you find is you get higher and higher level. You can take the somatic component out, the movement component, because you've gotten better. And so, at level 5, you can do a level 1 spell without the somatic component. At level 10, you can do a level 1 spell without the verbal or somatic. You can just, and your ferret appears. But when you're starting out, the verbal and somatic components can help. And it's true of what we do. It's a way to direct your imagination. When you're trying to ground and have trouble, take that heel of your foot, just boom, boom, just gently. Just feel it thump into the floor. Maybe it's your shaper. You want to do it a little harder. Boom, boom. You want to feel it. And you're not creating anything when you do that. You're just reminding your belly that that grounding rod is there. Boom, boom. And maybe when you're a white belt first getting started, you have to install this grounding rod. You have to install the thing running down your legs and into here and then deep into the ground. Maybe when you're getting started, you have to do that. I'll let you guys work that out with your teachers. By the time you're yellow belt or beyond, that grounding rod should be there all the time. Right? So first step, boom, boom. Just slap the heel slightly. And then find your sound and your gesture. And you're done. You may find you have to do a little bit slower to go through your whole body. Make a sound and a gesture. And all that stuff is gone. I can reach out and ground a whole room. Right? I can reach out wherever you are around the whole world. So wherever you are, you should feel that. The whole world gets grounded. And you can do this. Well, maybe you can't ground the whole world, but you can ground yourself. You can ground the space around you. You can ground the people around you. You see somebody there with a little anger or frustration in their guts, you can just poke it. Poke the anger and go, or whatever your sound is. And it's gone. I want everybody to understand that grounding's not complicated. And more importantly, I think that the people who don't understand things make them complicated. Right? So if your teacher is up there saying, oh, well, you take the radicand, the area under the radical, and you square that and you divide by 7, -2 plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, and it's all complicated, they don't really understand it. Because when people understand something, it's simple. And so any technique that comes from me, through your teachers to you guys, is going to be simple. And if it's not simple, you go back to your teacher and say, that's not simple, that's complicated. And if it's complicated, it didn't come from Angel, so help me out here. Grounding is simple. Stomp your heel slightly, imagine that grounding rod, and just take all the noise and touch it to that grounding rod. And you're done. And if you want to do it 2 or 3 times, make sure you got it all. And if you want to make a little wand with a wire attached to your grounding wad, you can do that. Oh, there's one up here. And you just ground each of these spots. But it's simple. There's no real thinking involved. It's just, and you're done. And we do that one first. Because it's really difficult to center and get in your guts when there's fear there or anxiety or when there's a hurricane going on. So we ground first, and it's easy. It's simple. And then we center. And for many of you, centering is difficult. Well, I'm trying to grab my energy from here and here and here and shove it all together and force it down into here, and it keeps trying to jump out, and I'm forcing it back, and it's jumping, and we're wrestling, and we're struggling, and eventually maybe I get a little bit there, but then it pops back out. But see, centering can be simple. And it goes like this. You hold out your hand. And you take all your attention. And you make a little ball that has your attention right there in your hand. And you let it go. The other hand, take all your attention and make a little ball and put it there. And you do this any time. And then you take that and you move it to this hand. And maybe you take it and put it in your foot. Ooh, cool. Try not to hit the grounding rod. You lose it. Right? You take it, put it back in your hand. You put it on top of your head. Make it spin. Ooh, right? Take it, put it back in your hands. As soon as you have an idea of this piece that is your attention, your center, your energy, your yourself, your awareness, as soon as you can sense it, you just go boom, and it's in your guts. Immediately it goes, eek, there's feelings there, and leaps out. No big deal. You've centered. You don't have to wrestle it. You don't chain it down. It's not a bear. It's not a tiger you hold by the tail. It's just your attention. So when it leaps back out, you do this. You make a little ball with your attention, and you put it back. And if it leaps out, you make a little ball with your attention, and you put it there. And it's that easy. See, a lot of folks, it tries to crawl up here to your third, gets up here and starts choking you, and people say, oh, my heart's in my throat. No, your energy's in your throat. Your heart's right where it should be. Right? You don't have to grab it. You don't have to hunt it down. You don't got to scan through and find it. Just go like this and imagine all your attention making a beautiful little bzz energy ball, and just put it in your guts. Now, if any of you have ever trained a puppy, when you're first teaching them not to pee all over the house, you put newspapers down. And when he's starting to pee, you put him on the newspapers. You know, little bitty dogs, you can't just throw them outside. So you put him on the newspaper. Of course, puppy promptly wanders off. You pick him up and you put him back on the newspaper. And he wanders off. And you pick him up and you put him back. You don't take a net and nail it down and trap the little puppy there. It's just not going to make the puppy happy. Puppy's going to be scared of the newspapers and not going to be able to go. You just very gently find the puppy, boop, you put him back on the papers. He wanders off, you find him and put him back. And this is all centering is. You take your attention and you put it back. It's not a fight, there's no anger, there's no aggression, there's no struggle. You take your attention, you put it in your hand, boom, and gently put it back. You say, but I don't know what my attention is, I don't know how to put it in my hand. That's okay. Use your imagination. You just imagine. One hand, two hands, tip of your nose, I don't care. You imagine. All right, a little ball of energy. And when you've got that little ball of energy, put it in your guts. And when it gets out, you do it again. Little ball of energy, put it in your guts. And see, this isn't complicated. It isn't a struggle. It isn't difficult. So ground. Stomp your heel slightly. Imagine all the noise. Go, and it's done. Center. Take the energy, put in your hand, it's in your guts. And then breathe. I see people going, I'm breathing. It doesn't work. I see people all tensed up. I'm breathing. The thing is that most bodies in this world, people are always nervous, and so they keep some tension in the guts, and so they simply don't breathe enough. You're only breathing in a little. And what happens is, you know, if you put a plastic bag over your head and do this, your body's going to start to panic. It's going to freak out. It's going to get crazy. This is what you're doing all the time because you don't breathe enough. Your body is permanently in a state of excess excitement, of nervous, of afraid, because you're not breathing enough. And when you're breathing right, you should recognize it, because your shoulders that are up here should just start doing this. And your mouth, which is doing this, should just start relaxing and smiling. And you know you're breathing right if you're doing that. Best thing you do to start breathing, open your mouth. Most people are afraid to do that. When you're a kid, folks say things like, close your mouth or flies will come in. Or silly things. It's actually an insult to call somebody a mouth breather. Oh, you're some kind of mouth breather, meaning you're underdeveloped. But when you're trying to breathe and breathe deep, it's much easier to open your mouth. And you take your hand, right, in a salute, a karate chop, and you put your thumb out to the side. And if your thumb doesn't bend that way, that's okay. Just put it out to the side a little bit. Right? Then you stick that thumb in your belly button. And your hand's horizontal across your belly. And right behind where your hand is, this is where you want to breathe into. If you're breathing in your lungs, you're going to get dizzy and it's going to make you tense. Hand here. Breathe in and make your belly big and fat, like the Buddha. And then breathe out and act like you're trying to, not pushing with your hand, but act like you're trying to get your hand to touch your spine. And then just do that. You don't got to do this all day long. But when you're nervous, anxious, upset, and you're trying to do ground center breathe, heels, lightning rod, center, and once your hand's already there because you're just centered, you do that for a few seconds and your shoulders will start to relax and the tension above your eyes and in your jaw will start to relax. And this is it. This is the basic stance of all that we do. There's no adjusting knobs. There's no bifurcated channels of energy. There's no scanning anything. You just breathe deep and soft for 5 seconds or 10 seconds, whatever it takes, and you're done. This is ground center breathe. And if you're doing it more complicated, you're making your life unnecessarily difficult. And if it's confusing, or if it's difficult, if you're fighting or struggling, you're making your life more difficult. Watch this part of the video over and over if you like, but those simple steps are there. Ground, center, and you start to relax. And all that noise and buzzy and chatter and the roar and the wah and all that just starts to relax. It's easy. So, if you're having trouble with ground, center, breathe, or you don't do it exactly like this, go back and retrain yourself. If it does involve centering first so you can feel where the energies are to ground them, go back and retrain yourself. Go back and redo the basics. Do them in this order. Ground, center, breathe. And you'll know you're doing it right because your whole body will go, oh, at last. I've had that noisy stuff all day. Oh, wow. Hey, I can feel again. I can move. All that tension is melting away. And if you've been carrying that tension for hours, energetic tension creates emotional tension, which creates physical tension. You've been carrying it for hours, the tension in your shoulders and neck isn't going to go away right away. You spent hours putting it there. You may have to actually stretch gently for a little bit. You may have to move a little bit to work out some of that tension. You can do that. The actual process should take you 3 to 5 seconds. Ground, center, breathe. It's that easy. And it's not just this. If there's any elf path process you're finding difficult, if you find sweet just way too complicated to figure out, find your teacher and say, it's complicated. And they'll say, then you're doing it wrong. Let's start over. Because none of this should be complicated. We're trying to create a path you can walk every day for the rest of your lives. We're trying to teach you to heal people by putting your hands on. And someday, fly. Levitate things with your mind. Talk mind to mind. And if the most basic stuff, the stance, is intensely complicated, how will you ever get to that fancy stuff? It's going to get more and more and more complicated. You have to be a genius to do it. No. Sietska's 2-year-old can do some of this stuff. Ground, center, and breathe. It's easy. And it's simple. And there may be rare moments in your life where you're totally panicked and freaked out where it's not easy. Just because there's so much emotion or so much chaos. It's okay. It's still simple. If you're going to get in a martial arts duel and you're blocking and jumping around and so on, you don't have time to think about where your feet are in your stance. This is why your teacher in a martial art will teach you over and over again to practice your stance until it becomes automatic. If you're a fencer, the back foot this way, the front foot this way, and you walk by shuffling. In everything you do, in every physical activity, there's going to be a basic stance that you hold. And when you're leaping over a vaulting horse and doing a somersault, you can't be concentrating on how do my feet have to be when I land, or you're going to fall on your face. Right? The basic stuff, the basic steps, the stance, you got to practice over and over again when you're relaxed. Just do it 20 times a day. It takes a few seconds. Right? Anytime you're waiting in line or talking to your boss and he's annoying, or watching television and a commercial comes on, listening to me talk and a commercial comes on, whatever. Use these things as prompts to remind you, hey, this would be a really good time for GCB. And just do it. Heels, center, breathe. And you do this 10, 20, 30 times a day, every day for the next 30 days, the next month. It may seem like a lot now, but it only takes a few seconds each time. It's going to become so natural, you don't have to think about it. You're just going to do it without thinking. Everybody got this one?
Yes.
Nothing complicated, nothing difficult. I want this to be super easy. GCB should be just about the easiest thing you do. All right. Let's talk about boys and girls. How many people remember being a little girl and saying, "Oh, boys are gross, boys are stinky," or being a little boy and think, "Oh, girls are gross"? How many people remember this? Most of us? I'm sure there was a time when you were a little boy saying, "Oh, girls are gross." A little girl saying, "Oh, boys are gross." And when you were 5 years old and you see somebody kiss you, you think, "Ooh, yuck." This kind of boys are gross, girls are gross, it doesn't completely go away. Talk to a woman who's recently broken up with her guy. All men are pigs, all men are dogs. It's a grown-up, angry version of the little girls. All boys are gross. And talk to a man who's trying to pick up a girl in a bar and she's very mean to him. All women are... And it's never, "That woman was mean to me." It's all women. It's never, "Oh, my guy was a pig." It's all guys are pigs. Guess what? It's not true. To say all guys are pigs or all women are nasty and manipulative, something like this, it is extreme and unacceptable as saying all Mexicans are lazy and they steal. All black people should go back to Africa. These kind of stupid racist comments, most of you should recognize, aren't appropriate in our society. Maybe 100 years ago that kind of ugly arrogance was accepted. It's not now. And so if you find yourself saying these things, "All guys are dogs. They don't think, they're stupid, I hate them. All women are crazy and manipulative." When you start saying that, I want you to immediately follow it up with something extremely racist. "All them red-skinned Americans should be killed. All them black people should go back to Africa." And I want you to say it out loud. And watch people around you. "What? How can you say that? That's stupid and arrogant, and it's just not acceptable." And then I want you to put those two statements side by side and recognize there's no difference. There's absolutely no difference between classing all men together and judging them all, or classing all Mexicans or all Polish people or all Jews. It's unacceptable. It's an extreme kind of racism to class a whole group of people together and make derogatory, abusive statements. Hey, there's a commercial on. I want you folks to become aware of this, because every one of you has it. I have seen... I'm not sure if this commercial is muting me for everybody or just you. All right. I have seen senior people in Elfpath, people who should know better, and watch them think or feel, "Oh, you're a guy, so I'm not going to tell you that. Right? You're a guy, so I'm not going to help you. You're a guy, so get out of here." And I have watched senior people in Elfpath say, "Well, yeah, but you're a woman and I'm mad at my mom, so I'm not going to listen to you. Yeah, you're my teacher, but you're a woman, so I'm not going to listen. You're a woman, shut the hell up." I have watched this happen amongst the senior people in Elfpath, and so I'm sure it's happening amongst the new folks as well. And I want you to become aware of this, that everybody has it. And I want you to understand, I've seen a lot of the older people in Elfpath who are starting to look in their guts. Women saying, "I really would be happier with a woman." Or men thinking, "Maybe I'd be happier with a man as a lover." People are starting to actually look inside and find that for many of us there's a movement away from a heterosexual to a gay bias, to a gay preference. And a logical outcome of that. Imagine you're a woman who's dated men for years and you suddenly find yourself attracted more to women. You're looking at men and thinking, "Oh, razor stubble on their face. They stink. Hairy chests. Big, clumsy, leaving their stuff all over the house. They never listen when I talk." You're going to start noticing these differences. And likewise, men starting to become more attracted to men are going to notice all these things about women that they have always been a little bothered by. When that happens, you're going to jump back to that 5-year-old. Ooh, all girls are gross. And I want you to become extra aware of this. I want you to work extra hard to become aware of this. Something in you is going to be saying, oh, all boys are gross, all girls are gross. And see, that's incredibly handicapping in Elf Path, because we have both boys and girls. Your teachers will be both men and women. Your students will be both men and women. Your classmates will be both men and women. New ideas coming down from the top might come from me, and at this point I wear a male body. They might come from Rohan. At this point she wears a female body. You can't downclass or downgrade things because they come from some specific gender. And the only way to get past it is to begin to become aware of it. And especially if you're starting to think, you know, I've always thought of myself as straight, and now I think I'd be much happier if I explored a gay life. Especially if you're doing that, you're going to find the stuff that you used to tolerate annoying or disgusting or frustrating. Become super aware. We can't afford to throw things away between us because of gender. And see, that's only the second most important thing. The most important thing is, I don't care what your body looks like, you've got male energy inside. You've got a male energy node, and you've got all kinds of male things inside. You've got a female energy node, and you've got all kinds of female stuff inside. Everybody does. The Chinese spoke of yin and yang, the circle with the black and white apostrophes in them. When they spoke of this, they called it the male and female energies. And some of you are going to think, oh, that's sexist. Saying this is male and this is female, this is masculine, this is feminine. We have to, In the modern world, where we're trying very hard to pretend there are no differences between boys and girls, that might look sexist. At the same time, we're saying, oh, all men are gross, all women are disgusting. It doesn't work. There are differences between male and female energies. Now, those of you who have been around long enough to have picked a life path archetype, say you're an A1F, you have to understand and hold the A1F, but you also have to understand and hold the A1M. You have to grow up both those parts in yourself. When Roha works with you folks, sometimes she'll hold the A3F and be this mother energy for people. Sometimes she'll hold the A3M and be a father energy. Focus a little bit and, hey, pay attention. Sometimes, oh, it'll be okay, and sometimes it's, hey, straighten up. And both of those are very helpful, and she can easily switch back and forth because she's integrating both the male and female pieces. And see, every one of you is going to have to do this. You have both male and female bits inside, no matter what bits you have outside. Your inner bits are both male and female. And if you've got a part of you saying, oh, all males are gross, all females are liars, whatever it is, you're going to take those parts of yourself, which should be powerful and healthy and supporting you, and you're going to start turning them down. I don't want to hear that. I'll just turn it down. I'll just lock it up in a cage and ignore it. And you can't. You can't be healthy with this part of yourself ignored. You have both boy and girl inside. Everybody does. And if you want to be a spiritually mature adult, both the inner little boy and the inner little girl have to grow up. Both the men and fen have to become strong. Just about every spiritual path I've studied talks about the sacred marriage. And this isn't where a very spiritual man and a very spiritual woman get married and raise kids. The sacred marriage is inside. When the very male elements of you and the very female elements begin to get along, and then they get to know each other better, and eventually you begin to fall in love with yourself. The various parts of yourself fall in love with one another, and they begin to weave themselves into something much bigger and stronger and more amazing and more beautiful. This is the sacred marriage. This is what the Lover's card in the tarot represents. not someone you slept with once. The two sacred parts of the self, the male and the female, merging. And they have to be there. There may always be a piece of you that is the sacred child, the holy child. And that child is fairly androgynous. It's too young initially to have developed any gender. And so there may be a sacred child in there, but there is also a sacred male and a sacred female. And ultimately it's these three which allow you to be strong. It is on these three, you can think of them like legs of a stool, that you sit on. If you have the holy child being big and strong and wonderful and fleshy and fun and playful, and you've got the inner female, big and strong and supportive, loving and taking care of the child, and the inner male's kind of weak and mousy and stuck in a corner, you're going to sit on that stool and it's going to fall over because one leg is weak. All three of those things have to be strong, and they all have to be equally strong. The inner male, the inner female, the holy child, they all have to be strong for all of us. So I want you to become very, very, very aware of next time you think, oh, men, oh, women. Anytime, even the slightest little hint of it. Because it's damaging to Elf Path and the people around you, but much more importantly, it's damaging to you, yourself, your inner process. I don't care if you're over 2 meters tall and have shoulders this broad and a big hairy chest. I don't care if you're the ultimate supermodel curvy female. I don't care. You have both male and female pieces, and they both have to be equally strong. Not just cross-dressers, not just those rare people who are born with both sets of genitals. I'm talking everybody. Everybody has boy and girl inside, and the boy and girl have to be strong, and they have to be friendly, and they have to get along, and they have to grow up together. So the boy and girl inside become a strong man and a strong woman, a strong male and a strong female, because those energies both exist in you. And the holy sacred child has to grow up and become strong and shiny and bright and playful. It has to happen. Now, have any of you ever heard someone say, I have, all the problems in the world, stuff men have screwed up. Right? If we just got rid of all that and let women run the world, it'd all be good. Anybody ever hear this? Yeah, I don't think it's uncommon. Some of the so-called New Agey types have a piece that wants to crucify all the male energy and just let the female energy run things. What I want you to understand is that there is light and there is shadow. The light side of the male energy is strong and focused and confident and capable. The shadow side of the male energy is violent and brutal and controlling and destructive. Wars are the shadow side of the male energy. People hacking one another apart, or blowing one another up, or shooting one another, poisoning one another with gases, throwing grenades. This is the shadow of the male energy. And much of the trouble we see in the world is the shadow of the male energy, but not all of it. See, there is light and there is shadow. And the light side of the female energy that we all have inside is creative and nurturing and compassionate and aware and great at multitasking. But there's a shadow side of the female energy. And the shadow side of the female energy is manipulative and deceptive and controlling and cruel. The shadow side of the male is a big club or a sword. The shadow side of the female is the poison, the dagger. Both of these have a light side and a shadow side. The holy child has a light side and a shadow side. Most of you should know that by now and have looked at it. There's an evil child and a holy child. Now, look at the CIA, an organization that supposedly keeps the world safe. More governments, third world governments, have been overthrown by the CIA than perhaps any other organization in the world. They go in and assassinate people and manipulate things and cause a rebellion and put a new government in place. The Russian KGB was the same. They would go in and manipulate and lie. They would grab people and capture them and torture them. They would have spies sneaking around gathering information. This is the shadow of the female energy. Whereas the shadow of the male is violent and destructive. The pieces that are manipulative and cruel, deceitful, these are the shadow of the female. Now, for those of you out there saying, oh, no, that can't be true, I want you to understand, everybody has light and shadow. And if you make a list of 100 characteristics of what is in power, light side, female energies, and you take every one of those and turn them around, you'll discover the shadows. And you'll find what I'm talking about. The world is not falling apart now because of the shadow male energy or the male energy generally. It's falling apart because of the shadow. And the wars and the violence, that's shadow male energy. But the manipulation, the screwing up of the monetary system, the sneaky stuff, the lies, the deceit, this is the shadow of the female. We need to get past this arrogant, bigoted, racist idea. A cabal of Jews is running the world. All black people need to go back to Africa. All Polish people are stupid. All Mexicans are lazy. All Arabs are evil. We need to get past this narrow-minded, racist bullshit thinking. And the idea that, well, all the problems are caused by men and all women are good and holy is the same kind of thing. The same kind of narrow-minded thinking. The problems are caused by the shadow. Whether shadow of male, shadow of female, shadow of the Holy Child. The problems in this world are being caused by those shadows. We cannot create this into a healthy world. I'm not negotiating. I'm not offering you guys options here. I'm telling you, we cannot make this a healthy world without developing powerful, strong, unyielding, healthy male energies, and powerful, strong, uncompromising female energies, and powerful, bright, shiny, uncompromising Holy Child energies. We simply cannot fix the problems this world's undergoing without developing all three. So the ones of you, perhaps the boys who look in the mirror and think, oh, I'm a man and so, I'm terrible. I have to shut down everything male about myself and be quiet and meek. You'll never be any good to the world. And those of you who are women saying, oh, I don't like the parts of myself that are manipulative and deceptive. I'm going to shut down all that women stuff and just, become a CEO or successful in business and very driven and focused. And you can't throw away the female energies. You can't. And you can't throw away the Holy Child. Not if you want to be healthy. Not if you want this world to be healthy. And you know what? We don't need them to be in balance as far as, oh, this is too strong, let's turn it down. We want to make each one of those three as strong as possible. If you're great at the Holy Child energies and not as good at the male and female, that's okay. You don't have to turn the Holy Child down. Go ahead and be playful and rowdy and fun and lighthearted and celebrate life and experience joy. Make that Holy Child stronger. And in doing so, you can teach the people around you. If you're really good at the more traditional female energies, at nurturing, at taking care of others, at listening, at counseling, at providing for, don't try and turn that down so you stay balanced. If that's what you're good at, make it big and huge and shiny and bright. And the people around you will learn from that and grow. And if you're good at the male energies of making decisions and being strong and focused and telling people what to do, don't try and turn that down so that you're a properly balanced, socially acceptable, approved by the New Age kind of person. Don't try and turn these pieces down. Take the male pieces you find inside and make them as bright and strong and vibrant as you can. Take the female pieces you find inside and make them as big and voluptuous and powerful and happy as you can. Take the Holy Child pieces and make them as big and bright and celebratory and shiny as you can. Make all these pieces grow. You want people to look at you and say, you are the most masculine person I know. And then say, you're also the most feminine person I know. You want to hear this. You're doing something right when you hear this. You want to make them both strong. There is one of these dark future type books. It might be 1984 by Orwell, something like that, where they take the smartest people in society and they have to wear headphones. And every so often they hear some horrible jangling noise in their headphones to distract them. So they can't ever think clearly. And the people who are most athletic, they have to carry extra weight around and such. Because they're trying to take all the best people and lower them down to average so that nobody stands out, so we all get along. This kind of approach won't work. This kind of shadow side, shutting down, destroying, crippling the parts of yourself that are strong, isn't the answer. The answer is to take the male parts of yourself, the parts that want to be assertive, that want to shout, and the ones that see a problem and want to jump in and fix it. To take the female parts of yourself, the parts that want to nurture and help and support. The holy child parts that want to celebrate and dance naked in the rain and skip and play. And you want to make all of them strong. And whichever one comes up, you want to use that one and celebrate it, make it strong. Whichever one. All of them need to be strong. Now, when you get up towards Greenbelt, and you're bringing the heart online, and you're teaching others, your teachers are going to come to you and say, hey, your male energy is great, but your female energy is weak. Or vice versa. And when they do, they're not telling you, shut this down. They're telling you, spend more time on the one that isn't as strong. That is, when you get older, you're going to take the ones that aren't as strong and you're going to make them stronger to keep your three-legged stool balanced. But until you hit Greenbelt, don't worry so much about that. Take all these pieces and make them strong as possible. And if you ever find yourself criticizing all men or all women or saying, oh, I hate children, they're noisy and obnoxious, if you're criticizing somebody for being loud and rowdy and playful, stop yourself and recognize that you're criticizing one of these three sacred energies. And because all communication is autobiography, when we criticize something out there, we're criticizing something in here. Oh, that person's just too pushy. Well, you're criticizing something inside yourself. You either feel it's too pushy or you want to be more pushy and you're trying to stop it. That person's too loud, that person's too quiet, that person thinks too much, that person is too emotional. You're criticizing parts of yourself. So when you find yourself criticizing the male energy, the female energy, or the holy child anywhere in your life, stop and look inside and realize that you're criticizing that part of you. And take a moment and celebrate that part of you. Oh, I'm criticizing people for being loud and rowdy and playful. Let me go inside and find that scared holy child and tell it it's okay to be loud and rowdy and playful. Let me celebrate it and build it up and make it jump up and down and make it feel loved and warm and healthy. You find yourself criticizing all men, or even just treating one man badly. You look and say, why am I treating that guy badly? Excuse me. If you find yourself even treating one male badly, look inside yourself and find that male piece inside yourself and recognize that maybe you've been treating it badly, and for just a minute celebrate it. Celebrate that it's male. Celebrate all the things about it that are male. If you don't have it, find a list of all the healthy male characteristics. And when you're trying to celebrate that piece, you're not celebrating a hairy chest or a big beard. You're celebrating all the meta components that are healthy male. So if you don't have this list, find it. They're out there. If you find yourself criticizing feelings or compassion or being sensitive or caring about people or anything that might traditionally be considered a more female energy, think that you realize that you're probably beating up the sacred female within yourself. And take a few moments and close your eyes and, of course, GGB, and go inside and find that sacred female piece and celebrate her. Tell her that you love her, that you want her to grow strong. You want her to be the most amazing, sacred female piece she can be. And when you're done, talk briefly to the male and tell him, I want you to be the most sacred, amazing inner male energies. And the Holy Child, I want you to be the most sacred, amazing holy child energy as you can be. Now I understand that many of you have worked through the men and fen, the male energy node and the female energy node. And those of you who've done so realize the male energy node tends to imprint on dad or a strong male figure when you're young, and the female tends to imprint on mom or a strong female. And after you're 15, 20, 30, you've got those pieces inside all the time. You start doing something and you hear mom's voice in your head. Why are you doing it that way? What are you thinking? You never get anything right. You're an idiot. Whatever your mom says, you hear her voice in your head. You hear it going on. And it's coming from places like the female energy node. Or perhaps you find yourself explaining, well, this is why I did it that way. Because the dad voice is in there saying, well, what were you thinking? Okay, let me explain. This is why I did it. You find yourself explaining to these inner pieces. And if you've done this, if you've been through this, if you're starting to be aware of the male and female energy nodes, you're going to start thinking of them as bad guys. Because there are very few of us who had amazing parents. Most of us had parents who criticized, who weren't supportive, who didn't give us what we needed. And the men and fen piece we start looking at as enemies. The idea is not to see the inner male and inner female pieces as enemies. They will be. They'll be out of control and critical and constantly lashing out at you, trying to sabotage you, attacking you with knives, setting fires in your guts. They can be pretty nasty when you first start trying to tame them. But I don't want you to think of them as enemies. This is not your mommy and daddy inside, or whoever it is you've patterned on. This is not them. This is the sacred male and the sacred female inside that nobody ever taught how to be sacred and holy and special. And so they patterned on mom and dad. Your job now is to reparent them. To take them, turn them down, so they're not shouting, shut them up a little bit, and as you do, let them know that you're in control, because they're scared. And when you do, they're going to regress to being really small children. They're very young male and female pieces that are just acting out. And as you do, you start turning them down. You get control. And you start recognizing them as very young male and female pieces. You start parenting the parents inside. You raise them up, not to be your parents, but to be the truly healthy male and the truly healthy female inside. And as you move up through your energy system, you'll find other parts that also interface with the male and female. You have to do this again. Anytime you find a male piece inside that's out of control, it's probably not an enemy. It's part of the sacred and beautiful male inside that never got taught how to be sacred and beautiful, to be special, to be loved and to love. You begin to reparent it and teach it. And likewise, anytime you find a female piece that's nasty or critical or difficult, it's part of your sacred female that never got taught how to love and to receive love, how to care and express that concern, how to be beautiful and to know itself as beautiful. And so your job as you begin to grow is to teach those. Not to shut up and mind their own business, which is what your parents taught you, but teach those that they are in fact part of something sacred and beautiful and amazing. You are part of the sacred female inside me. You're part of the sacred male. And right now you're really out of control, so I'm going to roll up a newspaper and smack you on the nose and say, sit. But not because I'm angry at you, but because you're an out-of-control animal barking and trying to bite me in the leg. Sit. All right, now, I want you to understand. You're not an animal. You're part of something sacred and beautiful that never got the training and the love and the discipline and the focus and the awareness, the appreciation to grow up into the sacred, beautiful male and the sacred, beautiful female. And as you begin to do this, as you treat them as a sacred, beautiful male and female inside and help them grow up, they become not enemies, but embodiments of these two powerful and beautiful parts of yourself. And as they grow up and become strong, they begin to look at one another and say, oh, you are amazing. And they make the sacred marriage inside. And if you're gay, the sacred marriage is not going to be two women growing up inside. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. It's the male energies and the female energies that we all have. Now, I want you to understand, you will meet men out there who are 80% male energies and 20% female. They're just very, very, very male men. Not the people who deliver your mail. I mean, very, very masculine men. Right? You will also meet men in your life, if you meet enough people, who are 80% female and 20% male. Some lean very much towards the male energy. Right? So the reason I'm saying you're not growing up two women inside who are going to have a sacred marriage, I'm saying you're bringing the male and female energies. And a man may have more of the male or more of the female. A woman may have more of the male or more of the female. Some of you may have met a woman who's 80 or 90% male energies and tiny little bit female energies. There's nothing wrong with that. People choose to explore and express different amounts of these. But these two, the male energy and the female energy, they're kind of fundamentals in this life. They're kind of fundamentals in your process. It doesn't matter how much you express in your life. If you're a woman who works in construction and chews tobacco and doesn't shave her armpit and wears, big comfortable work boots and walks around and spits and swears and prefers drinking beer straight from, big vat, I don't know. Whatever male characteristics, likes to go to bars and get in fights, there's nothing wrong with that. You're simply expressing more of the traditional male energies than the female. You still get to bring those male energies into the light and into power. You get to grow them up. And if you're one of these women who wears high heels and dresses very feminine and wouldn't ever speak loudly and won't drink beer but only white wine, or, you're very quiet and careful with your makeup, it doesn't matter. You're simply expressing more of the traditional female. But you still have them both inside. Likewise, men. You're little quiet, fussy men, leaning, much more towards all the female characteristics. You want to counsel and help, but you never want to be in a fight. It's okay. You're simply expressing more of the traditional female energies. Don't try and change who you are. That's just what you choose to express in this life. Right? Recognize that whoever you are, you still have the male and female inside. And I don't care if you're a man who's almost all feminine energies, and you've never been in a fight, and you're a great counselor and a great cook and a great listener and all those things, you still have to take the sacred male inside and make it as big and strong and male as it can possibly be. You don't have to change the way you act outside. You can do whatever you want outside. But you still have to recognize the male as sacred. Now, I've done this process for many years. And in that time, I used the tarot cards a lot, because I found there's a lot of truth in them when you know what you're doing. And for 7 or 8 years, 95% of the time, when I laid cards out and I would pull a card to represent me, I'd get the same card. Every time. It was spooky. I would show people, all right, let me pull out a card to represent me. All right, let me lay out 6 cards and the middle one is going to represent me. 95% of the time it was the same card. It was the Queen of Cups. It was the female energies focused on emotion. Every single time. I have never been in a fight. I have traveled all over the world and done all kinds of crazy things, and I've never been in a fight. I avoid fights. I don't like to get dirty. I'm fussy about it. Ugh. I'd much rather have nice clothes and a nice house and stay in nice hotels than go camping. Ugh. Right? I can do construction, but I don't like to get dirty. And most of the jobs I've done, I have been a counselor and I've worked with thousands, literally thousands of people. I have never taught people to arm wrestle or, worked in a bar I guess I did work in a bar as a bouncer at one point. All right. Most of the jobs I've had, almost all of them, have been the traditional female. That's what I've chosen to express in this lifetime. You might look at me as a physically large man with a hairy chest and, I grow this big thick beard when it grows in. But the energies I've chosen to express have been the female. And yet I have grown them both up inside. I knew a beautiful woman in Hawaii. I had just come in from my job in construction and I was covered with mud and paint and I had tools hanging on my belt and I was all hot and sweaty because it was Hawaii and I was working outdoors. And she said, "You are the most masculine men I've ever met. And I looked at her because she was an artist, and I said, you know the art I do. You know that I sew all my own clothes. You know that I'm the best cook you know, and I listed all of these things. And she said, well, yeah, you're also, without question, the most feminine man I've ever met. And at that moment, I knew that I was doing something right. Because this woman who's an artist who spent her life studying people and being aware would look at me and say, you're the most masculine and the most feminine man I've ever met. I thought, I'm doing something right. I'm growing both these pieces up strong and healthy. And this is what I want you to do. Whatever form you wear, whatever your face looks like, whatever your genitals look like, whatever your body looks like, whatever size or shape you are, whatever you choose to do as a job, whatever energies you choose to express, whether you date men or women or goats, I don't care. The male and the female both have to grow up strong and healthy and powerful and be effective parents for the holy child piece, which also has to grow up strong and healthy and sacred. Now, that said, I'm going to say go play with it. Have fun. Good night.